chemistry laboratory with a dead body. It's rather quite messy, don't you think? Alas, it will still make a good practice for the both of us. A little head start for the long day ahead. Perfect one. Now, I must say, as your first year's intern, would you like to give me your preliminary observations based on the cause of death for this person?
I will try my best, Detective. Should I start right now?
Yes, please. Supply me with your preliminary observations.
Well, first of all, our victim here is alone. A while ago, I checked the videotapes of the surveillance system to see if anyone else was present in the scene. It appears that this person was alone. No one should come to the laboratory and conduct experiments alone. It is always good to have a companion.
Sharp eye, Mrs. Watson.
Thank you, Detective.
Now, what else can you say about the victim over here?
What about him, sir?
Well, don't you notice anything odd?
Well, now that you mentioned it, I noticed that our victim was not wearing protective equipment at all.
Precisely. If you notice, he's not wearing his lab gown nor his lab goggles. And what's worse, he's wearing sleeveless, short shorts, and sandals.
One should always wear protective clothing inside the laboratory. And this includes lab gown, lab coats, closed shoes, and proper kinds of pants.
Well, at least his hair wasn't long, because if it were, he would have to confine those as well.
Is it okay if I examine the victim more closely?
Why, of course. Please be my guest. What is that smell? It smells like gas. There! It's open. Close it immediately. Mrs. Watson, aren't you forgetting something?
Oh, of course. How could I forget? Inside the laboratory, one should always wear gloves to avoid contamination and further harm.
Yes, that's right. Unlike our victim here, who wasn't wearing his gloves. Look at his hands, they're burnt.
In addition to that, this first-degree burn was not treated immediately with cold water.
Oh, I didn't see that, but yes, you are correct actually. In the event of an accident in the laboratory, one should always inform the proper people involved so that the appropriate treatment should be given immediately. Looking at his other hand...
It's very dirty! Don't you think, Detective?
Yes, I agree quite so. It would seem that...
It seems that our victim didn't wash his hands before going inside the laboratory.
Getting better, Mrs. Watson. Congratulations. Now, come over here. I would like to look at something here on his face.
I can see that his eyes are a little bit red, Detective.
Yes, indeed they are. And what do you think is the reason why?
I can't really tell the exact reason why, but I think his eyes were exposed to a substance which irritated it.
And what exactly it is that you have to do in case that these eyes are irritated? Very well, I will show you. Come with me. Now, if a foreign substance enters your eyes or a dangerous chemical spills onto any part of your body, you must use the equipment located over there. That equipment is called the eye wash in the shower. These can be used if a person spilled with any substance that may cause harm or irritation to the body. Usually, the person removes all of his clothing and opens the shower while everyone else leaves the room.
This tragedy could have certainly been prevented if someone else was here. Don't you think, Detective?
I believe so too, yes. However, I don't think a simple eye contaminant could have ended this man's life. No, there must be some other cause of death. That was a close one. Broken glassware should always be cleaned up immediately, or else other people inside the laboratory might be harmed. Let's look closely at it. What is this exactly?
My! What is this substance?
Hey, stop! Mrs. Watson, you should never smell substances directly through your nose. If you want, you can wave your hand towards your nose like this. This process is called wafting.
My apologies, detective. However, this liquid spill right here was also not reported to the person in charge. Could it be the possible reason for this victim's death?
It seems to be a relatively inert substance, so I highly doubt that this was a cause of death for our victim here. Now then, what a very interesting, strange setup we have here. Do you want to start, or would you like me to be taking care of this one?
Well, this is your expertise, detective, but I certainly would like to try.
Very well then. Then just like the gas nozzle left open earlier, tell me what else you have observed about this table.
Well, it is very messy. And I know that when it comes to laboratories, a messy workplace is never good. Everything should be organized.
Correct, Mrs. Watson. When one is finished with an experiment, everything that it used must be returned properly, including the gas nozzles and the lights and the laboratory equipment. One should never leave an experiment without any supervision, let alone leave it at all.
What was our victim thinking?
Last one, Mrs. Watson. What do you think was the most disturbing piece of this mess that we have here?
I can't find it, detective.
Well then, if you look closer at that beaker over there, you can see that it has a crack. However, this beaker was still used for the experiment conducted by our victim. Can you tell me why I found this very, very disturbing?
Oh, that's right. Using cracked equipment could harm someone because it could crack at any moment.
That is right. Now, wrap this part up, Mrs. Watson.
Yes, sir. Oh, right before I forgot, I saw some test strips lying around earlier, and I remembered something too.
What is it, Mrs. Watson?
Unused test strips should always be placed in test strip racks so that it would not roll off, just like what happened.
Just like what happened with the test tube that we saw earlier. That is correct. You were certainly one hell of an assistant, Mrs. Watson. Oh, what are you doing, Mrs. Watson?
I was just transferring the contents of the test tube back to the container.
But how can you be sure that the contents of the two are the same if they do not have labels?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. My apologies. I remember now that labels should always be given to containers and test tubes to avoid confusion.
Yes, and not only that, if by any chance that these two substances are the same, excess amounts of a substance should not be put back to its container, due to the reason that it may have been exposed to different agents in the air already. We can either share the excess amount to others in the laboratory, or if they need it, or
dispose it properly. Yes, I won't forget about those, detective. Thank you very much.
That's fine, Mrs. Watson.
I was just wondering, detective, what if this was the cause of the victim's death?
How?
Well, as you can see here, there's water and acid in the fume hood. However, last time I checked, the fume hood was not open for the last 24 hours.
Without the fume hood, he could have inhaled something which would cause asphyxiation. Maybe it would be best to look at the victim one last time before we conclude, shall we?
Detectives, yes, thank you so much for your help.
It was no problem. Best of luck with you.
Thanks again. Bye.
So, asphyxia as a cause of death, eh?
Well, it is asphyxiation, detective. However, I think it is not due to an acid inhalation.
So, what do you think caused it then?
I know it already!
At last, you have finally found it. Congratulations!
Wait, you knew all along?
Of course. It's only elementary, my dear Watson.
Detective, you should not keep valuable information which could help lives, especially inside the laboratory. If there is danger, you should alert everyone immediately.
Well, very well. I apologize for my wrongdoings. I just found it odd that it was because of the poor ventilation in this room which caused the asphyxiation.
Actually, it was a food, detective.
What?
The crackers! He choked!
Impossible!
It is the most logical one. He died because he forgot the one rule that always gets mentioned in laboratories. Never eat nor drink inside the laboratory.
But, wait. Oh. My, Miss Watson. You certainly outdid yourself. Wonderful. So shall we wrap this case up then?
Thank you for your guidance, Detective. Let us proceed to our next case.